Welcome, Kai. Thank you so much for coming. I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit about TrueLink Financial, and you guys have been around for quite a while, which is great credit to you.
Sure. Yeah. So we do financial services focused on seniors, people with disabilities, and people in recovery from addiction. And this is, to me, a group of people that is remarkably let down by the existing financial system. And there isn't a banking product that's sort of designed for a set of needs that is very, very common. So, for example, if you're the daughter of somebody who's aging and want to protect her from certain scammy transactions and keep an eye on her finances, it's like for a traditional bank, either you have the debit card or you don't, either you have the password or you don't. But it's very complex to provide that level of care and oversight. And so that's kind of what we wanted to do, was build a bank for people that are caring for their family, and that understands that from the ground up.
And so do you guys work with the banks? Because it seems like a lot of the FinTech companies have to form relationships with the incumbents. How has it been that for you?
Yeah, so we sit on top of a variety of infrastructure. We process transactions through different banks. We hold stuff in FDIC insured accounts. We have a custodian for investment accounts. But really, at our core, we're a competitor. We're asking you to move your money over to us because we'll do a better job.
Good on you. Might as well be honest.
Right.
I was fascinated and really enjoyed the article you wrote in Medium. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about your perspective, because it's such the antithesis of, the trend at the moment. Everyone's going hoo-ha about Bitcoin and blockchain.
Right. So I don't have any particular expertise at the outset. I've never had a job in the blockchain industry or whatever, but I was building a financial institution designed to be more secure, right? And so I promise if I'd had a use for it, I would have used it. And I couldn't see anything. Every time you sort of dig one level deeper, and then going around to pitch days, talking to the same venture capitalists, it seemed like everybody was saying, oh, well, we know it's not good for this, but I'm sure other people have it. I've heard other people are using it. And it was like, everywhere you tap a little bit and everything was a house of cards. And I thought that was interesting, basically, and I sort of wrote up something. I wrote it in July, actually, and I was just sort of sitting there on my couch typing this. I sent it to a handful of friends. I was like, "What am I missing here?"
Yeah.
Basically, they were like, "Yeah, I don't know anything contradictory to this, but I'm just some person, right?" So I didn't particularly think anyone would care what I thought about blockchain. And then in December, I happened to be sitting on the couch in a memory care unit in Chicago. 5 months later, and I was like, well, I'll just hit publish and see what happens. It was this funny overnight sensation. But I just even since then, I've had a bunch of conversations about it. I think I've sort of talked to some of the smarter advocates of it, and I haven't found anything that stands up to any scrutiny.
And I think it's fantastic if it got your attention for you and your company, obviously. By whatever means, in the end. And it wasn't destructive or negative. I think it was just another point of view.
Sure.
And so I'm happy that happened for you. But very interesting, because it's sort of like a lone voice in the wilderness at the moment.
Right. Well, the interesting thing is, so I wrote one in December and then one again in, I guess it was March or early April. The thing that's interesting to me is there's this sort of view that I think is really dangerous in Silicon Valley around, sort of like technology being the sort of magic wand, right? And I think that actually we, speaking for Silicon Valley, very often run the risk of being arrogant about things we don't understand, right? And so, when people come in and say, oh, Visa is obsolete, I'm sure there's lots of fat to trim. I'd love people going after that company, but there's also things that they do, and there's a lot of people working there. The Visa Zero Liability Guarantee is like a lifesaver to my customers. And you can get your money back if your credit card number is stolen. If your blockchain address or blockchain private key is stolen, you can't get your money back. And that's really, really meaningful to 70-year-olds with memory loss who are very vulnerable to giving out a password on the phone or downloading a virus or whatever, right? So it's just To me, there's like in all of these industries where you're trying to replace it with technology, it's like if you ask the voting systems people, the supply chain people, the transaction processing people, the security people, so what are you doing out there? What are you worried about? What have you learned in your sort of 30, 40, 50-year career of being an expert in this? None of them will say, what I need is a database that a lot of different people can write to, and where each row has a hash of the previous row. That's not what they need, right? And it's like, it's so arrogant of Silicon Valley, and it's like, people just coming in and being like, oh, like these guys are just such dinosaurs. And it makes me angry. It does make me angry.
And I guess there is definitely an arrogance in Silicon Valley, and sometimes it's sort of laughable as well.
Right.
And I really get the message about not exploring things deep enough, and also thinking that it's a cure-all for everything.
Right.
So, I really, really take on board what you said, and I really appreciate that you had the courage to do it, and I'm really glad that you got some attention from it.
Yeah, who knows, right? We'll see.
Thanks for coming tonight. I think you'll be a wonderful addition to the panel.
Very excited to be here.